Welcome to the Gospel Activist Podcast, ministry of Stepping Out Ministries, where we explore how we proclaim the gospel of Jesus Christ in our modern context. Here is your host, pastor and evangelist, Kevin Henry. Well, today on the program, we have a longtime friend of mine. His name's Tim Fus, and he's a worship pastor at Southpointe Church down in Florida. What city is that? I can't remember which city that's in.
It's in Leesburg.
Leesburg. And like I said, he's
been it's 50 minutes north of Orlando.
Okay. Like I mentioned, he's been a longtime friend of mine. I still remember a picture we have of when I was an infant, and Tim's holding up his sister, who's younger than him, and then she's holding up me. So, and
yeah.
I have to say that Tim's been very influential on me with evangelism too. I remember many times Tim and his family come up to visit our family, and he pretty much led all my friends on the block to Christ. And I always thought, I want to be like Tim. I want to reach the lost too. And so Tim, you've definitely been an influence on me with evangelism too. And so thank you for joining us on the program today.
I'm excited, man. I appreciate the invite, and looking forward to the conversation.
All right. Well, we're going to talk today about music and evangelism, and I want to ask you the first question. What is the difference between Christian and secular music?
Yeah, as I think about this one, Kevin, you try to boil things down, and what really is the difference between Christian and secular music? I mean, what makes it so different? And we could talk about different styles, the different level of musician, bunch of things can get wrapped up into that, and we can talk through a few different things there, and really just try to boil it down. But as I thought through this question, probably the biggest difference I see, Kevin, is content and intent. And the content of a Christian song, or what we would consider to be a Christian song, your content is probably talking about God, talking to God, and then you have your intent, which is to edify or build up one another, build up God. You're basically you're not really building up yourself. The music is not for yourself. Although it is good to worship and sing songs to the Lord, the intent of the song is really to bring glory and honor to God through one's heart, through their intent. Mm-hmm. And again, there it comes back to the content of what you're singing. The lyrics, are obviously a major piece of that. The song, the instruments itself, the music itself. You could, as we see years ago, you had pastors asking, I'll say their music pastors back in the late 1800s, hey, I need you to take these familiar bar tunes, and I want you to put Christian lyrics to them, so that when people come to church, they're going to recognize the tune, but now they're hearing the different words, the different content.
Right.
The lyric is different, and that content speaks more to God, more about God, more of God, than necessarily what the song of that day would have been speaking to, which probably, being a bar tune, would have been about drinking.
Right. So then, when we look at Christian music, is there a difference between Christian entertainment music and worship music, or is there any difference between the two?
Any difference between, what was the first one, Christian
entertainment music or worship music?
Man, now you're starting to dig into now you're starting to talk into philosophical stuff there, and we're bridging that line, and there's always that discussion of as we'll see here in a minute, the difference between entertainment and worship, or however that plays together. And maybe that's the question you're referring to, Kevin, the difference between entertainment and worship?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. There again, the difference between entertainment and worship itself, again, I'll bring it back to content and intent. When we see an entertainment, for example, here at my church, I refer to the stage as a platform. I don't refer to it as a stage. Heard this from the music pastor at Gateway Church in Texas, and I really liked what he had to say. When we have a stage, it becomes about us.
Right.
But when we have a platform, we have an opportunity to make it about somebody else. We have a platform to be heard, and to, what we're singing is not necessarily bringing the glory and honor to us, but we have a platform to, deflect or bring that glory and honor to the one who is, it is deserved of, and that's obviously being the Lord. So entertainment, the difference between entertainment and worship, again, is your content and intent. The content of the song, are we looking to, what is it we're trying to do here? Are we trying to edify and build up the Lord, lift high the name of the Lord? And the intent, am I trying to bring, the public eye on me? Am I trying to elevate my status as a worship leader or as an entertainer or as a musician? Am I trying to elevate my status, or am I trying to bring the honor and glory to God through the gifts and talents and abilities that He's given to me? And there's that intent piece, and that's what we try to do here at Southpointe. Really stress the high level of that the worship piece. What we do, we get to lead people to the throne of God. Right. And one of the prayers that we pray almost every Sunday morning is, God, may they not see us on the platform, but as the people sing in the worship today, as they're led by us, may they see Christ and His love in us as we lead them to the throne.
I really like that, because I think sometimes those of us who do music, and I lead worship at my church too, sometimes it becomes more of a performance than it does about worship. So I really like what you had to say there, because the focus, you're right, should be on Christ. So yeah.
And one of the things there, Kevin, is what we try to do is, years ago, when I started back into ministry, probably over 15 years ago, I'll never forget, I was on the platform one Sunday morning, and I was an assistant, so I wasn't the lead guy, but I was filling in that morning for the music pastor who was out of town. And man, I was trying everything. Why aren't people clapping? Why aren't they raising their hands? They're not engaged. They're not singing. What in the world is going on? And I walked off the platform that morning, and I went and sat in the room and just prayed about it. Lord, where did I miss it? What did I do wrong? And as clear as day. And I think you can probably relate. We've all had these times where the Lord has spoken to us very clearly, and He said, "Well, Tim, they're not doing anything that you're not doing." And I was like, wow. "Oh man, I'm not worshiping."
Yeah.
I found myself trying to facilitate and generate a response from people that I can't do. I can't do that. And man, I was humbled and broken. And I thought, Lord, may I never be in a position again where I am trying to generate a sense of worship. I can't do that in people's heart. So from that point on, man, every time I step on that platform, it's, God, may it be about you. May I worship first. As a leader, I need to demonstrate an example what we're wanting to do, and that is to worship, worship the King of Kings and Lord of Lords. And with that mindset and with your heart in the right place, that will come out. And when people see that, the Bible's clear. People will see that, they will know and fear, and they will be compelled to worship God.
Wow, that's so good. With Christ being the focus of it, what bearing should the gospel have on the music we listen to, whether it be whatever Christian artist or whether we sing a worship song in church? How does the gospel come into play with the songs we sing or listen to?
Oh, mercy! This is a fun one here. If you kind of want to break it down onto this one here, Kevin, and this goes, we talked about this a few minutes ago, but the actual musician piece of it,
yeah,
and then the actual, the music side of it, but then, and I'll just say, let's talk music and let's talk lyric, and there's lots of different styles of music I listen to, different genres of music I listen to. I honestly believe that God created all music. And I mean, he gave everybody the creative nature, musicians, I'll say, the creative nature, that ability within them to create music, whether that be, somebody like a U2 or, for our Canadian friends, the Tragically Hip, these guys, they create music. And that music, that ability, I believe, was given by God, was instilled in them.
Right.
There again, we can draw back to the content and the intent. Now, a lot of the songs that, I'll say the secular songs, they don't necessarily have the content and the intent in them that is going to bring glory back to the provider of the ability to write that music.
Right.
But that still doesn't necessarily mean that the music in and of itself is bad. So, for example, being a trumpet player, man, I listen to a lot of different trumpet players. There's some jazz musicians, some, swing tunes, all this different stuff. These different guys, I can learn from that. I can learn from those different people and how they practice and how they learn.
Right.
Same thing, with church music, with worship music, gospel music. You can learn from them, and the practical side of it. So I think the gospel on the music side of things, we've been compelled, as God has given us ability and the gifts. I believe it's our responsibility to foster and grow those gifts. Mm-hmm. We're going to be responsible for one day for, hey, Tim, what did you do with the ability and gift I gave you? Did you just bury your shekel in the ground, or did you multiply? Did you grow that? Did you train yourself? Did you learn? And so there's that side of the thing. Now the the lyric piece of it, man, I think the gospel, as far as what we listen to, we've got to be real discerning. And I'm one of those, just honestly, to keep it real simple, just garbage in, garbage out.
Right.
And what we take into our body, there's where the responsibility piece comes into play again as well. We've got to be very discerning, because obviously a lot of the secular music, some great tunes out there, great songs, musically, but then you break them down and you listen to the lyrical content, and it's like, wow, this is as great a song musically as it is. This content, and I don't need to be listening to that. I don't need to be hearing that kind of, I'll just say language, or again, intent. What are they inferring in this song? What is it? And there's the issue with the secular music, Kevin. Probably most of the time, it's not the end goal of secular music is not to bring honor and glory to God.
Right.
And I know that's a pretty broad stroke, but I think the end goal, and we could discuss this for hours at end, but I think the end goal for secular would be to bring awareness and recognition to a person's platform, if you will. Right. Make money. I this, that, the other, all that's wrapped up in there. And I'm not saying everybody's in that mix. I know there's musicians that write music because they love music. It's in them, and this is just how they're getting it out of them. This is how they communicate.
Right.
But I think as we see, I'll say, mainstream secular world, pop culture, there's a lot of people, it's about the money, and it's about raising their platform.
Right.
And I think we just, the big thing there is, for me anyways, Kevin, with the gospel, what bearing should the gospel have on the music we listen to? For me, there's a level of discernment. There's content and intent again, and that's what it all comes back to for me, is what is this song trying to accomplish? Is it going to build me up? Is it going to encourage me, my spirit, as a Christian? And then is it going to build up and glorify and edify and lift high the name of the Lord? And if it doesn't, there's where we have to be very careful about, what we're listening to.
Right. I so agree with what you're saying, because it's like you're saying, garbage in, garbage out. what comes in comes
right.
out. Yeah.
And there again, with And then that's probably not the best phrase I could have used, because it's not all garbage. There's some great music out there, and that would maybe be more on the side of the content or the lyrical piece as far as the garbage. But music in and of itself is it's music. It's from the Lord. It's the ability to create that was given by Him, and that comes back to the content. But yeah, just being discerning about what you listen to, and because you take a lot of lyrics out of a song.
Yeah.
For myself, I mean, I'm being a musician. I listen more to the song itself, the instrumentation. I mean, I like a good beat, so forth, so on. I probably couldn't tell you 5 words of any song. That's just not how my mind operates and works. I remember the chords and the instrumentation. Mm-hmm. So you take that out, take the lyric out. Man, there's some great lines, great rhythms, great licks, great riffs. There's just great music out there. Mm-hmm. And, again, when you put the lyrical content to it, there's where it changes. So, I mean, ultimately it comes down to content and intent for me. Yep.
That's so good. Since we talk about evangelism and the context of music, how can we use music to evangelize? How can we use it as a church to reach our community? How can we use it individually? What kind of tips can you give us for that?
I'll tell you a little bit about what we do here, Kevin, at Southpointe, and seems to work pretty good for us. And man, I love that question because I see music as a tool. Mm-hmm. Too many times, I think people, and you hear this phrase down here in different areas and conferences that I've gone to, don't worship. Because you're missing it. You don't worship the song. Don't worship the actual music. Don't worship. We got to worship the subject, the content of the worship.
Right.
And too many times we get wrapped up in style and in all of that. The style. I don't like the drums here. That's too much electric guitar, and I get that we all have different preferences and different styles that we like and everything. Mm-hmm. But the bottom line, that's what makes us us. We're different. We all like different things.
Right.
And I think music in heaven is going to be completely different than anything we've ever heard here. I think it'll be very different. I think God has His own music that He likes. I mean, there is no style or preference that God likes. I always tell my choir, He likes it all as long as it brings glory to Him. So let's not get hung up on the style. So a little side note there, but to evangelize, we can't get so hung up on the style. I don't like that, so I'm not going to use that song or do that song or whatever it may be. But our church, what I try to do with the worship ministry here, Kevin, we did for the longest time, we did a lot of programs inside the church. Mm-hmm. Which nothing wrong with that at all. We're doing that again this year. We've got a program one night in December that we're going to ask our community, our church, bring your friends into. We're going to celebrate Christmas. What we did, we kind of backed that off. We used to do 2 weekends of at least a concert a day, program a day. So we would end up doing anywhere from 10 to 12 programs over a 2-weekend time span, and that just got real tiring on our folks. I mean, it was a lot of money, and ultimately we came down to, hey, we're entertaining church folks. Mm-hmm. We had the buses come in from other churches and everything, and we weren't really seeing people come to Christ. Mm. And we thought, man, what can we do that'll better use of our dollars and be more effective in reaching people for Christ? So we what we do here at the church is we step outside of the building, and rather than asking everybody to come here, we go out to them. So where our church is located, we're in the middle of about 6 to 7 retirement communities. And what we've done in the past is we'll go to these different communities. Hey, can we bring our Christmas program to you? Mm-hmm. And it's Christmas music, So I mean, it's not like I'm singing "How Great Is Our God" and worship tunes that to these folks. It's Christmas music, and we'll start it off with the high end, Christmas carols and just having some fun with Christmas tunes, and then we'll bring it down to where we can present the gospel, and that's been real effective for us with the communities here in our region, and in reaching out to them, and it ultimately, I mean, we present the gospel. And they're invited to come to church and so forth, so on. Another avenue that we do, Kevin, is we actually partner with our city. So every year they have what's called Light Up Venetian Gardens, and there's over 500,000 lights in the park in downtown Leesburg.
Wow!
And we'll go down there, and we're basically the guest choir that we'll sing for 30 minutes before, and then they we flip a switch and boom, all the lights come on. And then we'll sing a few more songs, and really that is just ultimately what we do there is providing entertainment. So that piece in and of itself is not the be-all and the end-all. That is basically opening doors for us for the future to partner with the city, and also if that folks are there. I mean, that gives us opportunity after they've heard us sing, hey, what church do you go to, what so forth, so on. But then also gives us an opportunity to transition a conversation into a gospel conversation. So what it's doing is it's getting our people out into the community, getting out into the lost community, and giving them an opportunity, a vehicle, music, to start a conversation with an unchurched person. Another piece that we do is and this one I struggled with a little bit, being honest with you, back from my independent fundy roots. But struggled with this one, but man, we've seen some real cool things happen, some real God things happen in doing this with the band. We've got different. We try to encourage our band members to find friends, coworkers, whoever that play an instrument, guitar, drums, whatever, and we'll try to encourage them to bring them to a rehearsal. Bring them to church. Hey, if they'll come to church because they can play on a Sunday morning, bring them on. And I struggle with that one a little bit, Kevin, sometimes because of the being up on the platform. I consider everybody up there a worship leader. So how can you be a worship leader if you don't know the person we're worshiping? And
right.
So there's a fine balance. Yeah, there's a fine balance there. But I've seen what it does in the past for our people when a friend that shows up that doesn't know Christ and actually comes to church. That puts people over the top. Yeah. And that just fosters that desire to continue to share, to continue to reach. So it doesn't happen all the time. This is not something that we're seeing our unchurched friends up on the platform. Now, rehearsals and stuff, I've encouraged our guys, bring them to rehearsal, man. Get them up there. Bring them out on a Wednesday night. They're more than welcome to sit in. And they might not be hearing the gospel directly through a one-on-one conversation, but through the songs we sing, they are hearing the gospel. And there again, music is a tool. It's a vehicle. It's not the be-all and the end-all. It is a vehicle to, one, lift up the name of Jesus Christ and lift high the Creator, but it's also a vehicle, a tool for us, the way we're using it, to, initiate conversation with the lost people. And that's what we see at our rehearsals for the most part when they come, is they're able to come and we talk through, we'll talk music, we'll chord structure, progression, so forth, so on. And then there'll come a point in time when I might be not talking directly to somebody, but I'll start talking lyrical content. Hey, we see here what this is talking about and what we're trying to accomplish here musically. Let's line that up with what the lyric is saying. And so, we've seen some good traction with that, where, those three different areas specifically that we really try to use music as a tool, a vehicle out in our community, to reach the unchurched.
Well, I love that, because it's oftentimes in the church we don't think about outside the four walls of the building. A lot of times we think of how to bring people into the church, and so I like the dual focus there of getting into the community, but also bring people into the church. So Thank you so much for sharing that. So.
Yeah, absolutely.
What would be one of your favorite worship songs?
Kevin, I think it really changes, and but I'll answer the question in a second. But let me preface it by saying, different stages of life, I find different songs speak to me differently.
Right.
There's that can run the gamut of. There's hymns. Probably one of my favorite hymns is "The Love of God," and just the content, the lyrical content in that song is unbelievable. If we had enough ink to write across the sky, we'd run out of ink before we could tell about His love for us.
Right.
And so that I've always loved that tune, and just the actual the song itself, but then the lyrical content is phenomenal. And different stages of life, man. There's different songs that really speak to me. Right now, probably one of the songs that is really in me and I'm listening to, and I just, one of those you can't get enough of is a song by Great Are You Lord. It's called Great Are You Lord. And it's a song by All Sons and Daughters. And man, it just talks about, it's your breath in our lungs. So we pour out our praise. We pour out our praise to you only. And just a powerful, powerful song. It's just well written musically, but then the lyrical content again is just it's one of those songs that causes me to I can't help but be overcome by His goodness and greatness when I sing that song.
Nice. Well, thank you so much for joining us today on the program and for all your input. And I'm sure it'll be encouraging for everyone who listens to this about how they can use music to evangelize and the importance of music as a tool. So thanks for joining us today, Tim.
Absolutely. Again, Kevin, my pleasure. Thank you for the invite. This has been a great discussion, and look forward to the next time.
Likewise. I want to thank you for joining us on the program, and special thanks to my friend Tim Fus for joining us on the topic of the gospel and music. Next time, we'll be looking at what is a Christian and defining what a Christian is according to what Jesus says and His Word. Until next time, this is Pastor Kevin reminding you to preach the gospel to any person, anywhere, anytime, and no matter the cost.
You have been listening to the Gospel Activist Podcast, a ministry of Stepping Out Ministries. To submit a question for Pastor Kevin to answer on the podcast, visit us at www.steppingoutministries.com/podcast.html. Thank you for listening, and we invite you to join us for our next podcast.